Morning, Ian Summerall, Country Sports TV. Let's just set this up right so that we can talk. I'm just started checkering this morning, and I wasn't going to do another video, but we've got good news. We're now talking about the general licence again. The government have reissued 3 licences, 34, 35 and 36, to cover magpies, crows and jackdaws. Absolutely brilliant. Now, this week, Wild Justice, that's the Chris Packham crowd, put in another threatened legal case for judicial review to English Nature, saying that they've not accounted for certain things on the general licence, mainly the use of alternatives and the word kept, and I think that's to do with kept birds as decoys in larceny traps. Now, we're forgetting one thing. I've been working with the Firearms Act and the Wildlife and Countries Act all my life. And since 81, we've had the new Wildlife and Countryside Act, which, when I was writing for Countryman's Weekly, I had it as a reference. Because I couldn't tell somebody or advise somebody to do something if it was illegal. For instance, they started bringing in sound recordings, electronic sound recordings of crows. And I was asked whether it was legal. Under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, using sound recordings as decoys to bring birds in is illegal. It still is. It always has been. The general licence does not allow you to use sound recordings. So, alright, let's get that one out of the way to start with. Now, I believe that decoys aren't very good tend to use them. I'm not going to say they don't work, but if you do use them, they're illegal. Now, under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, I think there's been some misunderstanding. Now, this is my view, reading the Act, and it's what I've been brought up with. How it was explained to me in the early days. Now, lawyers and so-called educated people seem to think that the wording of the Wildlife Act is that's all there is. That's what it means. I'll explain what I mean. Wild Justice says that all wild birds are protected. I don't think that's the case. I think that where it says all wild birds protected in Part 1, Section 1, is only for the listed birds, the songbirds, blackbirds, robins, etc. Because in Section 1(7), it says that it only accounts for Schedule 1, Part 1 birds, and the birds that we have a breeding season for, if you shoot them out of season. So that would be your wildfowl and your game birds. Now, there's another piece in there, which is Section 4(3)(c), which says you can do pest control to protect crops. And this would be the old list of birds on Schedule 2, Part 2. But because of the bird directive, the EU bird directive, those birds were taken off because they didn't have a closed season. They were never added to the protected list. In my view, in law, and by the Wildlife and Countryside Act, pigeon, crows, magpies have no status in law. It's not on the Act. Oh, I'm told. It's implied repeal. What the hell is implied repeal? How can you imply something? You know, I could imply that I look like Roger Moore and I should be James Bond. I don't think I'd ever get away with it, but I could imply it. It doesn't work. You can't imply law. It's what is written on the piece of paper. Now, it's the understanding of that piece of paper that's important. Now, I've been arguing with lawyers and barristers by email over the last 2 weeks on this very subject. And they say, and they agree, the mad thing is these are shooters. Educated people. They agree with, well, justice. Well, if you're trying to fight your corner, you've got to find an alternative view and what I believe to be the truth. Part 1, protected birds, is only for Schedule 1 birds and game birds and wildfowl out of season. Because the other birds that are listed, crows, magpies, pigeons, are pest species, and we've always had a common law right to control pests. Now, there's no problem with the population of birds. As you saw in my last video, pigeon numbers are up by 50%, according to the British Trust for Ornithology. Now, so we're not maintaining the numbers. In fact, you could argue that we're not shooting enough pigeons. But I think that shooters need to get together. The organisations that represent them need to get the general licence scrapped. There is no need for a general licence. I believe the birds should be put back on Schedule 2, Part 2 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, of birds that can be shot at any time. But we may have to consider having a closed season for 3 months. Now, I said March, April, May. Somebody up north said, oh no, it's May, April, June. Well, pigeons may vary across the country, but mainly down south here, in the West Country, pigeons in my garden, their first batch of eggs is March, April, May. Rooks and crows come out in first 2 weeks in May. We used to go rook shooting up on the estate with the gamekeeper in the first 2 weeks in May, and I used to take my muzzleloader, because that's how they used to do it in the old days. The young used to come out onto the branches for their first flight, and this was solely to control numbers. There was rookeries of 300-400 birds, and if they're having 2 young a year, that's going to go up to 600 or 800 birds. So the numbers needed to be controlled. So in the late 60s, early 70s, I used to go up with a keeper, and I used to have a single 16-bore flintlock I used to use. And my job was to shoot the young coming out. Yeah, I know it might sound a bit cruel, but the numbers needed to be controlled. This is the important thing. They're pest species. They're like rats and mice. Yes, if the numbers drop, we will stop shooting and we will let the numbers grow again. And we regulate them. But if you've got large numbers of birds, you need to control the numbers. They devastate crops, they devastate wildlife. Now, my view on having a general licence, as you well know, is that it's not needed. We've got the Wildlife and Countryside Act, and that's got the exemptions in it. But people need to recognise that corvids, magpies, jays, jackdaws, carrion crows especially, and rooks devastate the birds that are protected. Your robins, your blue tits, your blackbirds. I've got blackbirds nesting in a hedge out here, and I've been trying to take a video of the magpies taking the young. Every year I got the camera ready, and every year it's either I'm not here or I'm in the middle of doing something else, and I've never been able to record it, or by the time I got set up, they've gone. We get eggs eaten and blackbird eggs on the ground when I'm mowing the grass. We've had young out where I've gone out and disturbed the magpies. They've left the young where they haven't taken them, where they've killed them on the grass. You know, people have got to understand that the countryman isn't a killing machine. We care about the wildlife. We care about conservation. The mad thing is that we need a good healthy population of pigeons, crows and magpies so we can shoot them. Yes, we need a good population of pigeons, crows and magpies so that they can be shot. Because we enjoy shooting. Now general license says that it's not supposed to be done as a hobby. Well, how else can I do it? My job is gun making. That's what I do. You see me checkering earlier. That's what I do. I repair guns. Well, what can you do? It's my pastime. It's my hobby. I go out in the countryside. I get out in the fresh air. Some people play golf. Some people play football. I shoot. And I'm good at it. I decoy pigeons and crows and magpies. Biggest number of pigeons I've had is round about 120. Normally run out of cartridges by then. Biggest number of rooks and jackdaws I've had, 280 in a day. There was two of us, mind, I got to admit that. Me and my old mate Bob from Wales. The grain was down and flat, and we really don't want to put birds down on ground because you don't really want to run your dogs on it and flatten more grain. So what we did is we set the decoys up on the grain and on the grass behind us that the cattle had just been moved out of. So the grass was quite thin, quite low. So we set the decoys up between the two, and the crows would come over either down the hedge where we had the decoys and come overhead, and we'd try and shoot them over the grass. We had a whale of a time. It was a good day's decoying. Like I said, we had 280. That was a good day. But when you go out decoying, numbers are, if the numbers are there, you can shoot them and you can have a good day. But sometimes we go out, we might get 10 or 20 birds. We're not after great bags of numbers. We're there to do a job. We volunteer our services to the farmer. The farmer has the crop, he wants the crop protected. And then you say, we can only do crop protection now under the general licence. But I argue that what we're doing, if we're shooting on stubble, is we're controlling the number of birds. And the European Bird Directive in Article 1 says protection, management and control. And we're managing and controlling the population of the birds. So even the European Bird Directive is on our side. And we control the number of birds by decoying them. Why do we decoy? We decoy to bring the birds into range so that we can shoot them. Yes, you put the decoys out so you bring the birds in so you can shoot them. And that then controls the number. Most of the birds, pigeons I shoot, I put in the freezer. When I was shooting regularly and shooting between 2,000 and 3,000 pigeons a year, I'd sell them to the game dealer. That helped pay for the cartridges. Then later, now we're doing it commercially now. You can't do that under the game licence, under the new licence. Commercial purposes is out. So you can't pay for pigeon shooting, and you can't sell pigeon shooting. How ridiculous can you get? Pigeon shooting costs about £120 a day, all according where you go in the country. There are places that do it cheaper. But they're not going to stop. They're going to continue. Most people that go decoying or say, right, we got the general licence now, they will carry on as normal. And as for using alternatives, I got to do this, alternatives. How many decoyers, we're volunteering our time, our effort, our energy, and now we're paying for cartridges at an extortionate rate. We're paying for that. We want to shoot. We volunteer our services and time to the farmer. We control the number of birds, pigeons, crows, magpies. Now, using alternatives, am I going to go out for 3 or 4 hours and try and keep birds off of crops? I haven't got the time for that. Are the farmer going to do it? A lot of farms now, they got contractors on. The farmers aren't farming the ground. I got 7 farms around me where I shoot, and they're all contracted. The contractors have not got time to go out and set scarecrows up, bangers up. They set a gas gun up last year on the wheat. Wheat fell down, it rained, they couldn't pick it up, and the pigeons started hammering in on it. They set a gas gun up, phoned us up, asked if we could go up shooting. Now I shoot locally with my mate Phil. Phil is like our shoot captain, he organises it all. I had a day off from the workshop here, and I went up and I shot. And I went up there, you do reconnaissance first when you decoy, so I went up and took the binoculars up and had a look round and see where the pigeons were. The gas gun was in the corner. The gas gun was going off every 20 minutes. The birds would get up, they'd fly up into the trees, gas gun was there, gas gun went quiet, pigeons would then come back in 1s and 2s over the next 20 minutes till the gas gun went off again. So, the alternatives do not work. I've seen scarecrows with a rucksack on them. They use it as a perch. You know, so all this alternative is a load of bunkum. You know, we have got to control numbers, and the only way to control numbers is to shoot them. And that's what we do as decoyers. Anyway, English Nature will soon be listing the new general licences on their website. Mr. Gove has written a letter which I got from my MP yesterday, and I think it's in response to Wild Justice. Wild Justice threatened to take English Nature to court again over the general licences that they've already issued, and I think Mr. Gove has called their bluff. 4,000 people have put in evidence of why we should be decoying and why we should have these general licences. I know I've already said I don't think we need the general licence, it should be put back. Now, the licences will be issued, please read them. They're not as simple as they were last time, they were 4 pages long, they are now 9 or 10 pages long. Read them carefully. And let's see what happens from here. But I think we've got to get together, our shooting organisations have got to get rid of general licences. I think what should happen is the rules and regulations should be written on the Wildlife and Country Act. There should be an amendment to the Act so that we all know where we stand. Because 90% of decoyers do not take heed or understand or even read the general licence. Most of them don't even know we've got it. They just think, oh, we can shoot, that's okay. They don't understand what a general licence is. They don't understand that you don't have to apply for it and it applies to all of us. So They're a waste of space. Everybody's wasting everybody else's time here. Put the pest species back on the Wildlife and Countryside Act, and we can then sort it out. We might have to get out of the EU before we can do it, mind. But let's hope we can get it sorted out for the good of the farmers and the good of shooters. Anyway, bye for now, and look at the Natural England website and download the new licences off of there, and then read it carefully.